And good morning, welcome along to our program, one-on-one chats with our candidates for the upcoming local election. I'm pleased to say that Councillor Debrah Novak is with you right now. Deb, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank
good morning, listeners.
For having a chat to us today.
Sure.
Deb, tell us a little bit about your background. You've been here for over 40 years in the Clarence Valley.
I have, and my background is I lived in Western Sydney before I moved to the North Coast as a little tacker, and yeah, I've really enjoyed being up here on the North Coast for quite a few decades now, and I have a really good understanding of what it's like to be a Clarence Valley resident for the past 40 years. I've had my 3 children here, worked, played, lived, and across the entire Clarence Valley, and really feel I have a good understanding from the coast to the country, which, you know, it's a pretty amazing place where we live.
You do a lot of work for the community, from the farm to all parts of the valley. Tell us about some of those things that you do.
Okay, so some of the things I do is I advocate on behalf of our primary producers through Clarence Valley Food Inc. It's an organisation that I belong to, and we advocate for our farmers for better conditions in farming, and you know how things are on the backside of like government and that sort of thing. So what we do is when there's been natural disasters, we make submissions, we talk to our community, our farming community, and then we make submissions with recommendations from their on behalf of them to the powers that be.
You've just finished your second term as a Clarence Valley councillor. Why have you decided to put your hand up again for a third term?
Because I love it, and I really thrive in it. And the council and our community, not so much the council, but our community, there's some really big conversations coming up this term on the back of our natural disasters, and how to be ready for that, moving forward and into the future for next generation. So there's some really big lessons we've just learned as the Reconstruction Authority has now identified the Clarence Valley as number 1 going forward, having the worst flood impacts. So there's some big conversations our community need to have. And being elected 2 terms ago, I feel like I had my L plates on, and my second term I feel I've had my P plates on, and third term, if I get elected, I'll be roaring down the track.
Do you feel that there's unfinished business from the last council?
No, because at the end of the day, each council meeting in the chamber, it's usually finishes, and people can take it forward if they want to. But for me, when that meeting's done, unless there's actually actions through that chamber meeting that need to be carried forward. For me, it's learning. Local government is going through some big reforms at the moment, so it's really important that we have people who are happy to be flexible, who aren't challenged by the status quo. It's really important too that we have a really big mix of people on council as well, so that it reflects the diversity that lives here.
Do you think there's sometimes a misunderstanding of the different levels of government?
Oh, absolutely. So for instance, and a lot of the complaints I get are often around state government matters. So for me, it's one of the really important things of being an elected councillor is being able to have really broad conversations with your community to educate them around the role of what local government does and the role of what state and federal does, because a lot of them just think they all do the same thing, when in actual fact there are really strong demarcation lines between what each does. And so even through my 8 years, I've learned a lot about what is the difference and who is responsible for what. But the biggest difference for state and federal and local government is when you elect a state member or a federal member, you are electing somebody to represent you. When you represent, or when you're voting for your local person in local government, you are expected as the person who is voted to be a part of the decision maker. And that decision making comes through community strategic plans. So when council puts out, does a call to action, say, be a part of this conversation, be a part of that conversation, it is actually your right to actually be a part of that conversation, because otherwise we just end up with thought bubbles that just keep floating around. Local government is the long game, and it's there for the people. It's the government for the people. State and federal, that's political parties. So that's why local government should remain political party free and should remain always for the people.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've got 17 candidates that are running this next election, which is September 14. Are you comfortable with those names if any of those got elected to work alongside them?
Oh, well, look, it's like living in any community. There are people you like, there's people you don't like, but at the end of the day, you have to work with them. And they represent a sector of our community that, I might know nothing about. So it's about bringing all these different conversations to the table, different lived experience, different education, different learnings. And for me, it's about that diversity that sits at the table, because when we go into a chamber to have our conversations and our meeting, we are expected to go in with an open mind, not with a closed mind. So it's important that we do that, so that if during debate, if someone brings up something new, you go, oh yeah, right. Or even when questions are asked to the staff, they could possibly bring something new that could re-inform your decision. So for councillors, we're in a very privileged position because we have all the information sitting there in front of us, unlike the community. So, we've got a really broad section of information there that we have to make an informed decision on, and it's so important.
What would you say some of the biggest achievements were for the current council?
Look, I was thinking about that the other day, actually. There's been a lot of achievements. So, and I know a lot of people may think that have an alternate view, but when you look at it together, what we've been able to achieve, even in the past 8 years as a councillor for me, has been extraordinary. So in that 8 years, we've actually paid down $50 million in debt. That is debt we have not accrued ourselves. And we've only just taken on new borrowing recently because of the Grafton Pool. The Grafton Pool, the Maclean Cultural Precinct and the Yamba Community Precinct, 3 major renewal projects which will set the foundation for the future of this valley, for our young people and for our little ones. Because at the end of the day, for us as a councillor, it is more than roads, rates and rubbish. We do have to think about the future, but that future is now a digital space. So we can't just have infrastructure sitting there that has no digital connectivity, that doesn't have best building practice there. It's really, really important that we grow for our future. Otherwise, we just become an overall retirement village, and that's not going to make anybody happy, simply because we won't have the young people there to look after our elders. So it's really important to have a really good balance and a really good mix of new and old infrastructure.
You put your hand up for the last 2 mayoral elections to run for mayor. Will you do that again for this next time?
I haven't decided, actually.
Sure.
Yeah, I haven't decided.
Okay. What do you hope to achieve in the next round of council?
Okay, so there's lots of things I'm hoping to achieve, and that is to actually be on the front foot alongside the Reconstruction Authority and their disaster adaptation plan, because the Clarence Valley has been named by the state government as the LGA in New South Wales that will have the most flood impacts. I'm wanting our community and business to be resilient and prepared for when those emergencies happen. So we're filming here today at the McDonald's and Old Tourist Information Building, and the McDonald's sign in 1992 was almost underwater. So where we're sitting now would have been underwater, and people have short memories. And there's a lot of new people have moved to our area, and at the end of the day, we don't have enough people on the ground through our first responders and emergency management agencies to be responding. So if it's flooding here in Grafton, you can bet your dollar it's going to be flooding in Maclean and Yamba as well, if it's as bad as it is here.
Mm-hmm. You are from Yamba,
yep.
So you sort of lived down there and you experienced the flood of the recent years
yep.
yourself, and you were actually up in the chopper and you
yep.
took pictures. The whole Stop the Fill campaign.
Yep.
Do you back that? Should we be stopping the fill?
Well, I have to say, I'm concerned about the organisation that actually started that, because on their website it actually says we will use force if we have to. So for me, that's really quite surprising that a community organisation feels they need to use force to get their message across. That tells me there's foundational issues there. Stop the Fill, most of Yamba is actually already on fill. So you've got your Keys Estate, you've got the Calypso Caravan Park. you have a lot of Yamboos already built on fill. Yes, they may have did or built things that way in the past, and that was to the building code, and the state government sets those planning rules. And whereas now we know different, and we're in a state of flux at the moment. So the beauty of the Reconstruction Authority, it's not just about building back better. The Reconstruction Authority also will be looking at planning laws. How can we enable our local councils to change those planning laws? So it's really important that we are upfront with them, walking with them straight away, so that they don't take a cookie cutter approach to what happens in the Clarence Valley.
And I guess that's where it comes down to. People think that it's council that can stop the actual developments, but it actually comes back to the planning laws.
Okay, exactly right. So, there have been a number of community groups out there who have been lobbying for quite some years now, probably a couple of decades, because I've actually read some of their paperwork as well, and I can see they've actually lobbied the wrong tier of government. They've been going after local government and through the development control plans. In actual fact, they should have been going after the state government and their LEP. There are solutions there, and even now there are solutions, because when I spoke to the Northern Rivers Planning Panel recently against a DA, I actually cited the fact that we can trigger a part of the Local Government Act that can actually offer developers a just terms compensation to buy back that land. No one's put that on the table as a solution before, but we can do that. The Reconstruction Authority has greater powers than the planning authority, so it's really the Reconstruction Authority can pull this in. It's about lobbying that group now and making sure that they understand that this community and even the community, we need housing, but it's a bigger conversation. And instead of demonising developers, bring them to the table and say, hey, look, we're all in the same boat here, the same evacuation boat, and but it's going to be difficult for people to get insurance. That's a really big issue that's on the table at the moment, and courtesy of Janelle Saffin and the 7 regional councils, they've made a submission to the inquiry about insurance. So, I've got friends, pardon me, who have had their insurance cost $2,000 and it now costs $28,000.
Wow.
So it's up there. And another thing for people to understand and remember as well, while your insurance has gone up, so has council's insurance gone up. So has council's risk as well. So of all our assets that we've got in play, it's just so important that the pain that people are feeling, council also feels that same pain. We pay the high electricity prices, like when your prices go up, when our private electricity bills go up, we pay that as well. So there is a lot at stake and a lot going on at the moment that it's very complex. And it's the same around homelessness as well. There are 3,200 empty homes here in the Clarence Valley when we're talking about planning. And they sit empty, right? So why are they sitting empty? That again can be a question and something that the state government can address. So rather than using up brand new resources at the moment, they could actually be filling those homes and putting people into those homes from having a discussion with the owners.
Just finally, obviously September 14 is just around the corner. Why should the people of Clarence Valley vote for Debrah Novak?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question, and I've thought about that a little bit. So I actually think it's phrased not well. So I actually think the question should be, if people vote for you, what will you deliver?
So what will you deliver?
Okay, so what will I deliver? Clearly someone who's got 8 years experience, but often experience doesn't mean anything because it can bring a whole lot of pain as well. But what you can, if you vote for Debrah Novak, you'll get someone who's authentic and real, someone who I believe has earned the trust of the community, whether you agree with me or not, my heart is always in the right place and my mind is in the right place. And people will also, even in the council chambers, they know I will fight for process, because I know in the council chamber, not one single person has my back. I know that for a fact. I've seen it for 8 years. But what I do know and trust the utmost, and that's what I have tested and I've made it so robust, is the process of model codes of conduct. When we have the rules there, those rules are tried and tested, and I have tested them ad nauseum, and that is the only thing that has my back in the chamber. So, you know, I will always be professional with people. I will always, you know, I don't have to agree with them. During these last 2 terms, you know, we agree on most things, you know, 90% of things we agree on. And there's nothing wrong with disagreeing on 10%. I mean, I'd be worried if it was 100%. That would tell me we have a very lame council. So it's important that we have robust debates. It's important we have put ideas and lived experience on the table. But for someone like me, I'm a listener, I'm a creative problem solver. And, you know, if I can't find out or if I don't know, I will find out for you. So I think, you know, I've read over 10,000 emails. I have responded to over 5,000 of them, which is my requirement, and have driven thousands and thousands of kilometres. And you know, for me, you know, it's just really important to have, you know, women, and not just because I'm a woman, but someone with my business background as well, because I'm really passionate about small business. So, you know, I feel I'm a good all-rounder.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
On September 14th.
Thank you.